And many grateful thanks to the team that worked tirelessly to make this all possible, and of course for the person who had the vision to do this all complete with air conditioning. My grateful thanks. Thank you to every one of you. Now then, our guest this evening is Dr. G. Veerasinghe. He is the Secretary of the International Affairs Department of the Communist Party of Sri Lanka. Very good evening to you, Dr. Veerasinghe.
Good evening, Faraz.
And thank you for coming in on our program. I thought I'll fire off with the starting question, because normally when we talk about the Communist Party of Sri Lanka, we have a wonderful name that comes to our sort of attention straight away, and that's Dew Gunasekara. Are you the sort of replacement to Dew Gunasekara?
Actually, Faraz, what has happened here is that the party has nominated me for the national list on behalf of the party to be included in the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna national list. And that's all. And it's true that I'm a senior member of the party, and I'm a member of the Politburo of the party, and I'm the Secretary of International Department.
Yeah.
So the things stand at that level at the moment.
All right, then the next question is, seriously, is there space in the local political dynamic for the Communist Party? Globally, we see there is hardly any space, very little appetite for the Communist Party ideology. And certainly in Sri Lanka as well, that is the same thing. It's another way, it's a nice way, Doctor, of saying that people don't really care for the Communist Party anymore. And why is it that you're not still in business then?
Yeah, you see that I can understand why, I can understand your question for us. But having said that, if you look at the history of the leftist movement in this country, nobody can deny the fact that they have done a marvelous job.
Isn't that reflected glory?
Now you see that you know, there is the reality, you know.
Yeah.
That is the reality, right? So you know, they were born in 1930s. First as the Lanka Samasamaja Party, and then from that the Communist Party. The days that they were established, their objectives were number one, the gaining the independence.
Yeah.
Number two was the socialism, right? Independence, you see, there were other forces which were fighting for independence, but then left added the needed color to that struggle. And you know that 1948 we received this Dominion level of status, which was completed in 1972. You know, at the time of you know, Sri Lanka became a republic.
Yeah.
Actually, the Lanka Samasamaja Party and the Communist Party were active partners in that coalition government. And when you go to the the world stage, you see that now the October Revolution in 1917, Great October, Russian Revolution, right? So that created two systems in the world to the first time in in the history. The divided world into capitalist and socialist way of economies, right? And then of course then we had the Second World War, where Soviet Union was able to fight with in coalition with United Kingdom and United States, and to defeat Nazism, right?
Yeah.
And Nazi Germany, Italy, and Japan. But
if we move on to contemporary times, we see But the Communist Party, the central theme, if you like, is self-sufficiency. And you hardly find any country in the world that is really truly self-sufficient in everything and anything. And therefore, we now have free movement of labor, the exchange of goods and services, and so on and so forth. And so I know you may say, well, look what happened to our agriculture sector in Sri Lanka. But that's one thing that didn't quite work out. And now everybody's rushing to do it. So in that context, if there is an appetite for the Communist Party, then we would have seen it in the votes coming in. We haven't. And so it leads to my other question. Why did the Communist Party decide to go into an alliance with the SLPP? Is it for political expediency, or is it because you found their ideology close to you? Or what is it? Why join the SLPP? Why not a collection of other independent or other smaller parties?
Yeah, you see, now, before answering the last part of the question for us, that, I want to, I have another thing to say here, right? And you're talking about self-sufficiency as a part of communism or communist ideology. Really speaking, the Communist Manifesto was written by Karl Marx in 1840s, right? It's not a big volume per se, right? It's a tiny booklet, right? And if you read through that book, it clearly says, I mean, that is the, Karl Marx clearly spoke about globalization. He showed there that, nobody can stop the, globalization of this production, the trade, and of course, with those things, people's movement and everything. No, you see, so therefore, actually, I mean, he used the special word that you asked about, self-sufficiency. He said that it's an outgrown concept. There's nothing like that, right? There is no country in the world which can be self-sufficient, no country.
But all this, over the years, what we've seen is a move, even the Communist Party in Russia and China and so on, they're all sort of practicing a form of socio-capitalism. It's capitalism with a healthy dose of socialism mixed into it.
Yeah, you see, really speaking, that now I was going to talk about Soviet Union at that time, the first question, right? Now, Soviet Union, at that time, the Soviet Union and some of the other socialist countries, they had a kind of a closed economy. So that was one reason, actually, why Soviet Union could not move forward. Now, that is the lesson that was learned by China, and that is why this, you see, opening up policies were introduced in late 70s by Deng Xiaoping to China, right? After learning what has happened to Soviet Union and other socialist countries. Therefore, you see that now what we are opposing is neoliberal way of globalization.
Right.
Neoliberal. Now, globalization you can't stop. I mean, you can't be isolated.
But nobody's really practicing neoliberalism in its purest sense, where it is the pursuit of these capitalistic ideals in its purest form, without looking at the social angle. But now you find that most countries in the world will be mixing capitalism, or this free and open market, sort of intermingled with a care for the common man, socialism.
Yeah, you see that really speaking, that is one turn that we have to take even in Sri Lanka, right?
Yeah.
Now you are asking me why we wanted to join SLPP.
Yes, why?
You know,
Why is
that may be actually one reason why we wanted to join SLPP, right? Now, you know, if you just look at the history of last 4 decades or so in Sri Lanka,
Yeah.
you know, the neoliberal economic policies were introduced to Sri Lanka in late 70s.
Yeah.
Now we have passed about 42, 43 years of those economic policies. And, you know, I mean, nobody can deny the fact that we are in a crisis after 40 years of neoliberal economic policies, right? Now, national income, say for an example, has dropped to say about 10, 11% against GDP as a percentage compared to, you know, which was compared to 25% or so in 1970s, a percentage, you know. About the national income was about 25% of GDP in 1970s. It has come down to about maybe 10, 11%. Now, you see that it has dropped, right? So when you are losing national income, of course you have to borrow. So we kept on taking loans from other countries. Now we are in a debt, you know, kind of a crisis. So we have
your partners,
yeah.
the SLPP,
Yeah.
members of the SLPP will poo-poo this whole business about loans, and because they don't worry about it. The last government accused them of sort of borrowing so heavily that they put us into trouble. So, you know, that's the flip side of this.
Yeah, you see that actually, you know, governments are, you know, accusing to each other, but then end of last government, the debts were further, you know, they came up further, right? That is the true situation, you know, but they were compelled to take, you know, loans because we don't have our own income. You see, it was dropped as a result of these neoliberal economic policies.
That's right. But Dr. Veer Singh, this is almost a NEWSLINE mantra now, but our total revenue is 1,800 billion. Our expenditure, recurrent expenditure is 1,200. The interest component is 900 million, making outgoing total of 2.1 billion. Now, against an income of 1,800, we make that a deficit of 300 billion. Where are we going to find the money from?
Yes.
Where will your government, which we are part of, the SLPP, how will they find the money?
You know, this is the exact point. Now it is high time for Sri Lanka to make a decision on these matters, right? Now, you know, what kind of economy at the moment we have, right? We are importing things, you know, imports-based economy, and we spend probably 3-4 times what we earn through export for imports, right? In monetary terms. So, you know, you can't continue this way. You see that probably we have to become an export-oriented economy. And what are we going to export? We have to look into these matters. You know, are there agriculture, the space in agriculture, you know, you know, the products that we can export. About last week, I met one of the leading professors in agriculture. You know, he said, right? He said that, you know, at the moment we are earning around 500 million USD as you know, from export of this so-called minor crops. Though they are not minor crops, like you know, cinnamon, then pepper, you know, things like that. But you know what he said was actually, you know, we have a potential of, you know, 1 billion instead of 500 million, 1,000 million we have a potential, right? Yeah. So we have to explore these areas, new areas. Why don't we, you know, think of exporting fruits, say for an example, right? Yeah. There's a massive demand for fruits, Sri Lankan fruits in the global market, right?
But no, I hear what you say, but whilst you're saying this, I'm suddenly seeing in my mind images of food being wasted, eggs being chucked away, and so on, indicating to us, the public, and certainly the media, that the distribution system needs a lot to be desired. So I mean, there are plenty of big companies in Sri Lanka who run supermarkets and so on, but they have got their distribution system in place.
I can't, I fully agree with you, Faraz, right? This is very well accepted thing. Post-harvest wastage is a huge issue in this country. Probably about 30–40% of harvest.
There is a lack of there's a lack of proper storage facilities, and the whole business of the farmers getting very little money and losing much of it to middlemen.
Exactly.
Those are all valid considerations. Yeah. Now, on this note, Dr. Veerasinghe, we're going to have to take a short break. Don't go away. After all, this is Newsline Live, and we'll be back on the other side of the break. And welcome back to Newsline Live. We're in conversation with Dr. G. Veerasinghe from the Communist Party of Sri Lanka, and who's telling us that he's just been, that they're aligned to the SLPP. Now then, there's a question here from a viewer who says, as your party is in support of the port tour, please tell us whether you are in favor of abolishing the 18th Amendment, and if so, why?
Is he talking about 18th Amendment?
Perhaps he's talking about the 19th Amendment.
Yeah, you see, now the 19th Amendment is actually we supported when it was brought in the Parliament. Probably it had 2/3 support, and at that time we had our representative in the Parliament was Comrade Chandrasiri Gajadhira, from Mathura district, and he, on behalf of Communist Party of Sri Lanka, supported the 19th Amendment. But having said that, we don't shy to accept that there are deficiencies. A deficient situation has been created, right? There are now, you see that now some of these independent commissions, there are obvious situations where you see remedies are needed, and then you have a prime minister and you have the president, two powerful centers. You see that actually, if we can remember, 19th Amendment was supposed to follow up with another amendment which was called 20th Amendment, which was never.
What aspects of the 19th Amendment do you propose removing?
You see that now Communist Party of Sri Lanka actually, right from the beginning, has been against the executive presidency, right? So therefore, we, when there were certain checks were brought in to the executive.
Do you really believe that this government, whom you are now partnering, or intend partnering at the parliamentary polls, do you really believe that they will get rid of the executive presidency?
No, not really. That.
So why then join a party and be a part of an alliance where you know that part of your what you need is not going to be done?
Yeah, Faraz, you see that now these are, it's a you can't be a single issue party, right? Now, country is having a, huge crisis at the moment. I mean, people have to agree on to that, right? A huge crisis, and which was aggravated severely with this COVID-19 pandemic, right? We had a serious issue, and that was exacerbated heavily by this COVID-19 pandemic or epidemic in this country, right? So we have so many issues to tackle, right? We are in a huge crisis, economic crisis. This economic crisis is being reflected socially, is being reflected politically. This country can't move, any further, with this crisis. So therefore, you have to look at things in a comprehensive, in the full picture. Actually, you have to take into. We still keep our policies, but keeping those policies, still we can. I think we can work
together.
with this with the.
Will the Communist Party support the MCC agreement, for example?
Not really. No, we don't. We have said very clearly.
Is it a clear no, or is it we'll renegotiate?
No, it's a clear no as it stands today, right? It's a clear no as it stands today. But you know,
it's $480 million.
Yeah, but money is not everything. It's true, you know, we want money, but then there are certain things that you can't, you know, sacrifice for money. See, for an example, this
like what? Like
now, see, now
sovereignty.
I give you, yeah, sovereignty, of course. You know, now one example I give you is COVID-19, the response.
Well, yes, the response, and also, Doctor, talking about sovereignty and so on. That American fellow just sort of waltzed in, broke all our expectations, and then put himself into self-quarantine.
You see,
where is our stand-up position to that?
I have said this very clearly several times. You see, our party condemned the way that they behaved, right? America is the most, worst affected country in the world with COVID-19. You know, people who are coming from that country can't get into Sri Lanka. It should not have been allowed to get into Sri Lanka without undergoing
their weight around.
Yeah, of course. You see that, you know, that the accepted policy at the time of their arrival was that the people have to undergo the PCR test in the airport, right? So, you know, there was no reason to allow those people, you know, without
a Sri Lankan man or a woman who travel into the United States,
no, they
would be able to do the same?
No. We understand that very clearly. Yeah. So therefore, but you know, as you know, but then of course they had undergone this self-quarantine at least. But nevertheless, we don't agree with what has happened.
And if you know, but this is another question. Somebody's sending it to us. If the Communist Party can make such an impact, why is it that you all don't have more members of parliament? Why is it that the voting public are not yearning to vote for your party?
Yeah, you see, I don't claim that, you know, we are a very powerful party at the moment. We accept the fact that we are not as big or as powerful as what we were. But this is true for the entire left movement. Again, that does not mean that, you see, that the mission, the historical mission, you know, of the Communist Party or leftist movement is no more there. But you know that there are issues. You see now, you know, say for an example, things like global warming, right? Then look at the refugee issue in the world. There are about 75 million of refugees in the world, right? And see the poverty, then the inequality.
I don't mean to switch you off, Doctor, but as we're coming towards the end, I need to ask you this. You are obviously part of this Port Alliance and so on. And so maybe you can tell us, why is it that there's so much of infighting going on there?
You mean within the SLPP or what?
Yes.
Yeah. You see that now this...
there's this Vietmaga thing and then this thing.
You know, now you are having this election, right? You know that the election system is preferential voting, right?
Yeah.
You know, in my assessment, there is no doubt that SLPP is coming to power. Then, of course, candidates are, you know, all candidates are fighting sometimes with others, yeah, to obtain as many as possible preferential votes. This system of election should be changed. Right. That is the Communist Party position, right?
Well, you know, thank you, Dr. Weerasinghe, for being as frank as you can be.
Thank you.
And we wish you well in your campaign. And of course, do stay in touch, because we are, after all, the People's Channel, and we can represent their interests rather well.
Thank you.
Asking you all the questions.
Thank you very much.
And that's the way it was on Newsline Live today. Thank you again to everybody who made this news studio possible. and have a wonderful evening ahead of you. Take care, and of course, God bless.
News First, Newsline.